Hello everyone. In my previous class, we came to know something about the little tiny kingdom that is Monaco and the kinglet and the inhabitants or how that king was running the system. That we have come to know in my previous video. But now, as we have come to a stage in the lesson today, here we can see that the king as well as the ministers or the commission of ministers who sat for discussion and came to a conclusion, the verdict was mentioned by the king, that was the criminal must be executed, or the death penalty was mentioned, or it was a punishment given to the criminal who had committed a murder in the peace loving kingdom or country that is Monaco. How did that king as well as the ministers, they executed the verdict? When they thought to punish this criminal with the death penalty, there was a hitch. There was a hitch. Hitch means a problem. What was that hitch? That criminal had to be executed. To execute that criminal, they must have an executioner as well as the machine. Right? They neither had guillotine or an executioner. That the machine which through which they could execute, that is called guillotine. So the king or the kingdom of Monaco, they neither had guillotine nor an executioner. So there was a problem, and moreover, that young man, a criminal who had committed murder, he had to be punished with death penalty, or he had to be executed. To execute him, they were in need of a guillotine or an executioner. But the kingdom of Monaco, they neither had guillotine nor an executioner. So there was a problem. This is the problem: not having guillotine and an execution. It was a hitch or problem, we can say. There may arise a question, one more question. So here be careful about the hitch or problem, that is neither having guillotine nor the executioner. So they were searching guillotine and an executioner. So they sent an inquiry, as they discussed, and they sent a letter or demanding letter for French government, asking whether they could provide or whether they could supply guillotine and an executioner. Right? So they sent a letter, and again the French government, it replied to the letter, and a week later the reply they got from French government. So in that letter, the French government had mentioned that a machine and an expert could be supplied, and the cost would be 1600 francs. See that the king of Monaco, he had discussed with his ministers, bishops, general, and all other officials, and he had sent a letter, and the letter was received by French government, and they answered to the letter now. And they were ready to supply an executioner and a guillotine, and they demanded for 16,000 francs. But the king of Monaco, he felt that it was quite expensive. It was quite expensive. So he felt that if they divide the 16,000 francs on each civilian or citizen of Monaco, each get 2 francs, approximately 2 francs they would be getting, more than 2 francs they would be getting. So he felt that it was not good way to punish that criminal. So he wanted to have a cheaper way of punishing the criminal, because that whatever they are going to pay to this guillotine as well as an executioner, so whatever they are spending for that money would be recovered or collected from the people or citizens. So he felt that people would raise their voice or they would make riot. Because of that, he did not accept this demand. So again they called the council, and they discussed the matter, and they came to a conclusion, that is to send another inquiry to his monarch friend, that is Italian government. Right? So Italian government, they sent a letter. So to that letter, they received answer. That Italian government, they demanded 12,000 francs, and in that 12,000 francs they were ready to supply guillotine and an executioner. Along with that, they had included traveling expenses too. It was cheaper than what French government had demanded. Yes, of course it was cheaper than that. So now they had to pay if they want to accept, or if they want to punish that king, that criminal with guillotine and executioner. It was a cheaper way. Comparatively, it was a cheaper way. So that king, he called this committees or council, whatever the people whomsoever he had in his council, he called them again. He discussed the matter and considered how it could be done, or how that criminal could be punished in a cheaper way. That was discussed in the council. And they got another option, another idea. They got another idea, that is to cut the head of that criminal off with the help of a soldier, because these soldiers usually they kill the people in the war, right? So this king as well as the ministers, they found another idea, that is to call a soldier and asking them to cutting the head off of the criminal. That was another idea they found. So they called the general of the army. So they called and asked him whether he could find a soldier who could cut that criminal's head off. Right? So they called and asked, but nobody accepted. This general went and discussed before the soldiers, but no soldier he had accepted the request, or no soldier was ready to cut the head off of the criminal. So the straight away the soldiers, they denied or refused. So they mentioned that they are well trained in killing the people only in the war. Right? In the war, they don't mind killing people, and moreover, they were trained for the same. Like that, they justified their act, not helping or not cutting the head up of that criminal. So they denied. Then what this king and the ministers are going to do? What was to be done? Again, they started thinking. The ministers considered, and whomsoever they were there in the council, they considered and reconsidered the matter, that is how to punish that criminal. So this time also they went thoroughly, and they decided that the best thing would be to alter the death sentence to one of imprisonment for life. And the council, they changed the verdict, and they thought to change the decision, that is to change the verdict, that is life imprisonment. Instead of death penalty, they are changing the verdict, that is life imprisonment. But here also they failed. The council members or ministers who were there in the council, they were failed, because they did not think whether they have resource or not. Again, they changed the verdict and they altered the verdict, that is to punish the criminal, that is to life imprisonment. They felt that it would be a cheaper way. The prince or the king of Monaco, he agreed the conclusion which was taken by the council of the ministers. So he accepted. Now that king altered the verdict, that is life imprisonment. So now that criminal must be imprisoned for life. Again, there is another hitch, another problem. Now there was no suitable prison to keep that criminal. There was no suitable or proper prison. But there was a small lockup where people were sometimes kept temporarily, as there was no, or before that there was no crime committed in the kingdom. They had neither this prison or lockup or the kind of punishment they did not have. But this time, unfortunately, a criminal had committed a murder, so he had to be punished. So now that king and they discussed and they came to a conclusion, that is to alter the verdict, that is from death sentence to life imprisonment, so that criminal must be imprisoned throughout the life. That criminal must be imprisoned throughout the life. So what he had to do, right? So what he had to do, that king, he was thinking. Now they did not have idea about what would happen if they change the verdict or alter the verdict. What would happen, they did not know. But now they came to a conclusion, that is to change the verdict. So that criminal was still young. So the ministers, they came to a conclusion and told that guard must be removed. They find a lockup. Now they set him aside. They kept him in lockup of prison, and the days continued. In the beginning, the days continued, and for that they had arranged a guard. Guard had to take care of this criminal. He had to bring food from palace kitchen, and he had to supply to the criminal. And that criminal was passive, or he had no physical work to do in the lockup or in that prison. So Aram said that criminal, he was having good food or royal food from palace kitchen, and that was brought by or fetched by the guard with whom they had assigned there in the before the lockup. The prisoner remained there month after a month. Okay, so till the year everything was good. Everything, it was good. But when a year had passed, the kinglet, he identified or he noticed another expenditure in his list. He noticed a new item of expenditure in his list. What was that expenditure? Or the money which they have spent on that criminal as well as the guard, it was brought to that king's notice. So annually they had spent 600 francs. Annually they had spent 600 francs on that criminal as well as the guard. So now it is the worst condition for that king, because in the beginning they thought to punish him with death penalty. As there was no guillotine and an executioner, the death sentence was altered to this life imprisonment. When there was they thought to punish this criminal with life imprisonment, they managed to have a lockup and guard. But when they looked at this expenditure, it was huge. When they looked at expenditure, it was huge, and it came around 600 francs annually. So he started to disturb the king, because it was also too expensive for the king now. So now the ministers, once again the king called the council, and again they discussed the matter. Now the ministers, they came to a conclusion. That is the decision, third decision now. Okay, so first one is death penalty, and they altered that to life imprisonment, and again they came to another decision to dismiss this guard and offers a safe escape. They thought, the ministers or the members of that council, they thought that if they remove this guard, this criminal would run away from the prison. These ministers as well as others, they thought that the criminal would run away or escape from the prison. But murderer, he did not escape, or that criminal, he did not escape. See, that criminal, he was enjoying the facilities which were given by the king as well as the minister. Aram say he was sitting there inside in the lockup, and royal food, it used to come from palace kitchen, and that used to be brought by this guard. So now they thought to dismiss the guard, so that they were thinking that that criminal would run away. But that criminal, he did not run away. He did not run away. So this commission of council, once again they called, and the criminal was brought before the minister of justice, and he was asked, the criminal was asked why he was not ready to run away. And even the king would not mind about his escape. So this criminal, he replied that he was nowhere to go, and if he would have run away, that people would have turned their back on him, or they would have not accepted this criminal, or they would have ill-treated that criminal. Because of that, that criminal was not ready to run away. Moreover, here he mentioned that the ministers as well as the king, all others, they had ruined his characters. So like that he claimed that he claimed that not running away or escaping from the prison. So now the commission itself is in the dilemma what to do and how to punish this criminal. They are fed up of all this. They neither had resource or ideas now. Even that criminal was not ready to run away. So what they had to do? Now they started to think. So finally, one of the ministers they discussed and came to a conclusion that is to give pension or 600 francs as pension for that murderer for lifetime, to leave the king's domain for lifetime. So they are paying him 600 francs, that too as pension for per annum. So per annum that criminal was rewarded. We can say that not paid. He was rewarded with 600 francs. That too he had to leave king's domain life for lifetime. So every year he had to collect his pension and he had to leave the kingdom. So in the beginning that criminal was rewarded with 1/3 of annuity in advance. So the criminal, instead of being punished, the criminal was rewarded. That is by paying him 600 francs as pension. Paying him 600 francs as pension, that too per year. So murderer later, he with the help of that 1/3 of annuity in advance which he had received, with the help of that the murderer he bought a piece of land on the frontiers and he started market gardening. So every year the criminal used to come to king's domain to just to collect the pension, and after collecting while on his way back to his state or way back to his place, he has to try his luck again there in the gaming house. Sometimes he used to win and sometimes he used to lose, but he used to manage and he used to lead a happy life. Because see, in the story Count Leo Tolstoy, he focuses on how that criminal was rewarded instead of being punished. It speaks or it emphasizes on the loopholes of a political system, or we can say that administration, right? So here in the story that criminal was rewarded instead of being punished. That is the thing which Count Leo Tolstoy has focused on in the story. Here I would like to conclude the story. Thank you one and all.